Box Free with Stephanie. Today I want to show you how to make some basic foods with simple ingredients from scratch. And I hope you discover cooking box free is fast and delicious. So let's cook together. Today we're going to make what I call Grouse Biscuit Bake. Other people might call it chicken and biscuit, but I like to call it Grouse Biscuit Bake. Grouse Biscuit Bake. Okay, so here I have my pan heating up. So this is kind of going to be crazy because I got such a little bitty burner and a big pan, but I'm making quite a bit of the bake today because I have 3 grouse. So the first thing I'm going to do is get my butter going in my pan. I'm doing half a cup because eventually I'm going to add basically half a cup of flour. And so I want kind of the same amount of flour as I do oils or whatever, fats. So while this is getting, woo, there we go, that's what I was afraid of. Oh boy. We'll have to, maybe, I might have to do some of this cooking on my stove. Yeah, the old hot plate's not so big. Okay, so I'm gonna start with my carrot first because that's really big. So I'm gonna dice up 2 carrots and then 2 stalks of celery. And then we're going to add that to our vegetable mixture. This is a recipe that can be completely changed to what your family likes. So if you guys don't like carrots, don't add it. If you don't want celery, onions, whatever. I have definitely made this before with just the frozen mixed vegetable packet. If I don't have time or I don't have the vegetables in my fridge, I just use the frozen vegetables, and that works just fine. So whatever you want to do for vegetables. But I actually don't have any mixed frozen vegetables in my freezer right now. So this is my foster dog, so he might be whining a little bit. We just got him 2 days ago, so he's a very nice puppy, but he likes to be very vocal. So I want my carrots cut, I don't know, a little bit small because they're so big and like chunky, and I don't want a big giant chunk of carrot to eat. So I do take a minute and just cut them down a little bit. Okay, that's going to be good enough. All right, you know, because if you were doing like the mixed carrots in the freezer section, then you get those itty bitty little cubes of carrots, but we're not going to do that at home. That's just fine. Okay, so that is 2 carrots, like whatever amount it is. Doesn't really matter. We're just going to go with it. My celery is looking pretty sad, so I'm kind of glad I can use this stuff up. Oops, and there's a bunch of dirt. That's what I was afraid of. This stalk was like so tightly curled that when I was washing it, like I couldn't get inside. I couldn't get in here to really wash it. So that's one reason why I like to split my celery down the middle like that before I chop it, especially when it's so tight. Then you can actually see if you're putting any dirt in your food. And if you are, you can take it out, or heck, leave it in. If you want a little bit of crunch in your stuff, that's fine too. All right, so celery I'm not so worried about making teeny tiny because it does get really nice and soft, but I suppose carrots would be the same way, but for some reason I just like to chop those smaller. So here's my next celery. There's some more dirt. Okay. I don't know. I'm just going to wipe it out. I don't worry too much about it. It's not like there's this giant chunk of dirt, but I will take it out if I can. All right. So we're almost done chopping my celery. And again, if I don't have celery in my house when I'm making this, I just don't put it in. And you know, actually, sometimes I don't do the onion, I guess. I just kind of forget about it, so I don't even put onion in it. It's just the vegetables. So it's a very flexible recipe, I will say, because you can just do whatever you want. All right, hang on. I'm going to stir this up a little bit here. Get my butter going everywhere. Oh, boy. This thing is just a little bit crazy today. That's all right. We're going to make it work because you can make almost anything work usually in the kitchen. I don't know, a little flexibility, we'll say, makes it all work. So my onion, I like to dice that relatively small. So you just go crossways and then you have all these little bitty things, little lines to cut, and then that gives you actually these really nice teeny tiny diced onions, which is pretty quick. So again, you cut it in half, and then you make all these little strips down the rounded edge, and then you come back across and just chop it. I like to turn mine, I guess, when I get a certain way, because I like to have my fingers. I don't want to chop off my finger, so I just turn it so I have a little more control. All right, so now what I need to do is cook this for, I don't know, probably 15 minutes until all my veggies are nice and soft and cooked. And then we're going to add our grouse. Well, first we're going to add our flour. So while this is cooking, I'm going to just wait because I don't want to make my biscuit dough yet. It's way too early in my opinion. So I will be back in about 10 or 15 minutes based on how quick this cooks. Okay, we are back. It's been maybe like 6 or 7 minutes. My onions are getting a little clear, translucent. My celery's getting cooked. My carrots are coming along. So now I'm going to add my peas and carrots. My corn and peas. So you could just stop right here if you didn't want these other vegetables, and you could just add your meat. But I like to add plenty of veggies. So I'm going to add I don't know, half a cup. I don't usually do too much on corn, I guess. Peas, I will definitely do hopefully a decent half a cup. I don't really measure because it doesn't really matter. You just do until the proportion looks good. So, I don't know, maybe throw a few more in. About like that, okay. And now we're going to let that heat up for just a few minutes. Make sure that's sealed. Throw these in the freezer. Okay, so now you can see my vegetables are really nice and greasy, you might say, because I have half a stick of butter in here, but we really want that because this is going to be our thickener. I stopped using cream of anything kind of soup I don't know, 15 years ago. It was like a little challenge I had for myself, and once you stop, you'll love it. But I need to make basically like a white sauce. First I'll make a roux and then that white sauce, and that basically becomes my cream of mushroom or cream of whatever soup and thickener. So I want a good amount of oil in my pan because then I'm going to add my flour, and that flour oil makes my roux. I'm going to add my milk, that makes my sauce, and that's what makes it nice and creamy when you're eating it. So I want this to heat up just a few more minutes because I can tell my peas are still frozen. And then I'm going to add my flour. Can't get my little bitty onions in there. I can talk about my grouse. Okay, so this is 3 grouse that my husband shot. So I usually cook these. I have one of those itty bitty crock pots that's for cheese sauce, to keep your cheese sauce warm. And I actually cook them in there, like my woodcock, grouse, maybe pheasant, I guess, but anything that's really teeny tiny like that I don't really want to cook on the stove because it gets too dried out. It seems to work really well in that itty bitty crock pot. So however you want to cook your meat, just cook your meat, and then I dice mine up. I try to keep decent sizes, but I'm also very aware when we're eating birds like this that there could be shot in it, so we always chew softly, and I try to get down and see if I can feel any bullets, which of course doesn't always work, but I feel better about it, so I try. But anyway, you can do chicken, turkey, I guess. I don't know, whatever kind of meat you want. I'm sure steak or beef would work in here too. You just really are getting any kind of meat. But chicken, of course, is probably the most common. And of course, I have made it with chicken, but I like to do this with grouse and woodcock. Last time I made it with woodcock, just last week, it was actually really dark. I keep a little bit of you can see a little bit of the broth that is just left from cooking, and I'm going to add that to it. So when I had my woodcocks, they're a very dark meat, and so my broth was much darker, and that made my whole cream sauce darker. And that has a different taste kind of anyway. I think I just lost my heat. No, there it is. Okay. So anyway, whatever kind of meat you want, but I don't want to add this yet because I'm going to be stirring it a bunch to make my sauce, and I don't want all my nice pieces of meat to be like all disintegrated into kind of no chunks. So I add that once my sauce is kind of all thickened up and ready. But right now I'm going to add my flour. So this is something I usually don't really measure out. I usually like saute my vegetables, and when they look nice and coated in a nice butter or fat, then I dump in enough flour. But I'm going to try to measure because that's what real cooks do. I don't know if they do or not, but we're going to try it. So I did half a cup of butter. Now I'm going to do half a cup. I'm going to start with just sprinkling like half a cup. See, and that almost looks like plenty. So that's only like a quarter cup, I'm going to say. So I have discovered that if I put too much flour in here, then my sauce, once it's thickening in the oven and getting all bubbly and thick, like it's too thick. Like I don't want it to be no sauce. You know, I want it to bake up with some sauce in it. So I think I'm going to call this good. Whoopsie. So you really just want your vegetables kind of coated in a light coating of flour. So you can see all my veggies have just, it looks like they were just like sprayed with something or whatever. So they're just coated with flour, and then the butter underneath all that coating is going to thicken and make a lovely sauce in theory. Now it does really work out actually, it's kind of cool. So we only used half of that, so I'm going to say a quarter cup of flour at this point. And then I will try to measure my milk. Hang on, let me grab something else. So I'm going to start with 1 cup of milk. And you can also do chicken broth in here, or I've done it with water when I don't have milk or water or whatever. I don't know, when I'm feeling, oh, I haven't salted it. That's the other thing I was going to do. When I feel like I don't have enough milk or whatever. So I'm just saying it's very versatile. It's a very versatile recipe. So you want to just cook this until it gets nice and thick, and then we might have to add more milk. We'll just kind of see how it thickens up. And with this goofy pan that I'm cooking on, this hot plate thing, might not cook as nicely and beautifully as on the stovetop, but should still work. What you're waiting for is your liquid that you just added, whether it's broth or milk, to kind of get warmed up, and then all those pieces with coating on it is going to thicken all of your liquid, and you'll suddenly have a sauce. It's very nice. So you can do this for any hot dish. This is kind of how I make my hot dish, my no-can hot dish. I should do a show on that, in fact, because it's really nice not to use those cream of whatevers. Okay, but while this is all just warming up, I can see it steaming. That's a good sign. I'm going to start my biscuit batter now. So these are just baking powder biscuits, and if I were to do a whole recipe, I would get my like 12 to 14 biscuits. But I'm only going to put it in this pan, so I really want biscuits just to cover this pan, which is more than 12 biscuits. So it's a long way of saying I'm doing half a recipe. So that's why I'm doing half a recipe, because I don't really want that many biscuits. But you could make a whole recipe and then just cook some in a cookie sheet or whatever and actually make biscuits, but I don't. But you can. You can do whatever you want to. So I did 1 cup of flour, 1/2 tablespoon of baking powder, 1 teaspoon of sugar, which I'm going to say is that, like 1/8 of a teaspoon of salt, because we just need a teeny tiny bit, like that, and then cream of tartar, we need 1/4 teaspoon. This really does make your biscuits nice and fluffy and stuff. I'm not sure what this stuff is, but it's just, let's just call it magic. It's like magic. Okay, so then you just kind of mix these dry ingredients together really quickly. I'm going to stir this. See, okay, can you see how it's getting thick already? So that's very nice. Now, if I was just doing this, I might say it's pretty much perfect, but I know I'm going to add my grouse. So I'm going to add more milk because this is going to be way too thick when I'm actually done after baking for half an hour. So I'm going to add a whole 2nd cup of milk because I want saucy stuff. I don't want it to be just really thick. So this is where it's a little bit hard because you just have to make it the way you want. And people that really like to follow a recipe, I guess you just follow it and then you'll just end up with saucy stuff the way I like it, I guess. But you can make it kind of however you want. So now we have mixed our dry ingredients together. I'm going to stir this really quickly. I do like to stir my sauces when I'm making them like this. And a wooden spoon on your nonstick pan is nice so you don't wreck your pan. Or like a nonstick whisk, you can use those too. But this is thickening up nicely. So I've got my dry ingredients. Now I'm going to add half a stick of butter to my biscuit batter. And then use this, my little pastry blender, it's actually hard to do a little half recipe because your butter is so little that it just wants to stick in your pastry blender. Where if you had a whole stick in there, I don't know, it just seems like there's more ingredients, so it's a little bit easier. But with any kind of biscuit that you blend in your cold butter like this, the intent is to get all these little pieces of butter to become small, like the size of a pinky or the size of a pea. Some people call it crumbs or whatever, but you're just trying to work in your butter. It's obviously not going to be whipped smooth like a cake because you have hard butter, and that's what you want. That's what gives your pastry kind of its flakiness. So we're going to just call that good. And then I need to check my stuff here, but it looks like it's doing okay. Oh, my puppy's whining. Oh boy, it's all right, puppy. Okay, so now I want to check this again. I want this to be bubbling because then I know it's working. But this is looking much better. I want this kind of thick sauce. Like now it's not as soupy as when I first added that second cup of milk. So when it bakes in the oven, I can tell it's going to be even nice and soupier. So in fact, I think I'm going to add my chicken now. My grouse, whatever, white meat with my little bit of broth, which again, I do that just for flavoring. I figure that broth is got a good taste to it. Hopefully it should. And I can take the little bit of liquid in here. It's not going to matter. So this is a nice amount. And this is a recipe, you can also cut this in half. You still make the same amount of biscuit because you basically are making just a shallower pan, but if you don't want to make so much of this, just cut everything in half and make just half a recipe for the inside or the juicy, saucy part. So then I need 1/3 cup of milk. Then you're just going to mix this up. I kind of do it the easy way. Oh, actually, I'm probably going to add more milk. When you're making baking powder biscuits, which this recipe is, you don't really want it to be too soft or whatever, your dough, because then you actually put it on your countertop and you knead it and then you cut it into little biscuits. But because I don't do that when I'm making Grouse Biscuit Bake, I like this to be just a little bit soupier. And I don't know, I guess I don't feel like it changes the texture of my biscuit. Still bakes up nicely, which by the way, my oven is preheated to 400. So that's, you want the nice hot oven for your biscuits. That's what makes them like pop up. Okay, so that's going to be good enough. So now I think I'm ready to assemble, and then we bake, and then we eat. So let me just try to get this stuff off of here. Okay. So, all right, so this is starting to get bubbly a little bit. You see how it's bubbling a little bit like that? That means it's helping to thicken it. And I think I'm going to call this good. Oh, I should taste it before I put it in the oven. Because I have no idea how much salt I added and if it's going to be salty or not. It's good. I don't add a lot of spices to mine. You could get crazy and add, I don't know, sage, thyme, whatever kind of poultry seasonings you wanted, that poultry seasoning mix. For some reason, I'm just kind of a plain Jane cook sometimes, and I just like the plain milky sauce with the veggies and the milk, or the meat. So, I'm going to taste it one more time here to make sure. Plus, when you cook from scratch, you just have to add so much salt. Like once you start cooking from scratch, you realize how much salt is in all this like processed, restaurant food. It's really kind of crazy. So this is kind of full of my batter mix, which I don't care. I'm gonna use it to scrape out all my good sauce. So this is ready in my opinion. So I'm going to dump it into my baking pan, get all that good sauce, and then comes the messy part. I'm sure there's a better way to do it, but I kind of like to be a messy cook sometimes, so I like the messy styles. So that's it. Okay, so see how it's like half my pan? So I have, like I said, I've made this with only half of that ingredient. So I put it in a shallow baking dish, and then I have no leftovers because there's not very much of it. So now I'm going to take my biscuit and just grab it with my hands and kind of smash it down. And I do it so it's very rustic looking, where I just kind of spread it around. You could try to drop it by tablespoons. I have kind of done that, but it's just so sticky it doesn't always seem to work. Or you could just roll it out and make nice, beautiful, round biscuits and then place those on top of your batter, your little sauce here. But I like the rustic look, so I just go for this, and it's super messy. But you just try to put biscuit on most of the places. It doesn't really need to be covered 100%. But if you rolled it all out and made beautiful round biscuits or whatever, then you could. Okay, hang on. This is where I was coming to a mess. Like, I want to put all this in my stuff. I don't want it to go down the drain, but it's really hard, and I want to get this stuff out of here. So hang on. I'm going to use this. See all that? I got a whole nother bite of biscuit there. So I want to put that in there, and then I want to try to scrape my fingers off, because I do have a lot of stuff on my fingers. So if you guys have any genius way for me to not be so messy, but I don't know, it's just kind of fun to be a mess sometimes, and just be all crazy with stuff all over the kitchen. Not all over the kitchen, maybe all over my hands, because these are kind of easy to wash. It's not very easy to wash the kitchen. Okay, I'm not going to grab this, so I do have to wash my hands. Okay, so now I can grab it, and I'm going to pop it in the oven. Like I said, it's at 400. I'm going to bake this for, I'm going to set the time for 20 minutes. I like to check it at 20. And then what I'm looking for is my biscuit top to be nice and tall and golden. I do want it to be golden because there's all that watery, liquidy stuff underneath. So I want to make sure my biscuit dough that's on the saucy stuff is nice and baked through. And I've never over baked this, so I've never had really dark, what I call Cajun style cooking, where you burn it, but it's Cajun style. So anyway, my point is we're going to come back in 20 minutes or 25 and see how it looks, and then it'll be ready to serve. We'll be right back. Okay, we are back. My Grouse Biscuit Bake has been in the oven about 33 minutes. So I'm going to pull it out so you can see how hot and bubbly it is. I'm going to turn this off. Look at this. Whew. Yum. Look at that. Okay. So this is what you want, that nice golden biscuit, and it should be all bubbly around the edge. That means it's just really getting thick. Getting saucy, hopefully. So this is what you are looking for. I'm going to let that just cool for a minute, because I think this whole time I've been talking about when I was cooking my vegetables, I was saying I was using half a cup of butter, and then when I went to add my flour, I wanted the same amount, and I only added a quarter cup. Well, that's because I was actually using a quarter cup of butter, but half a stick of butter. So I kept calling it half a cup, and that's why when I added my flour, I had way too much flour, because I only had a quarter cup of butter and I wanted a quarter cup of flour. So you want the same butter and same flour ratio. So anyway, I was just misspeaking, I think, the whole time. But it's important to know that you do the same amount of butter and the same amount of flour to make that roux, and then add your milk. So you still want 2 cups of milk, or I did for this recipe, but you only want a 1/4 cup of oil in your vegetable meat mixture, and then the 1/4 cup of flour. Okay, so I like to just loosen it up a little bit. So now I'm going to serve up my Grouse Biscuit Bake. Oh, and it's nice and saucy. So some people like to flip it over like that and do it that way. So either that, or you can just kind of spread it out and keep the biscuit on the top. But so now it's got some good liquid. You might not want it so soupy kind of like that. I prefer it this way. So whatever your family likes. If you don't want it so saucy and runny, just maybe cut back to like 1.5 cups of milk. Whew, this is going to be really hot, but I really want to try it with my biscuit here. So see if I can get a little bit of vegetable and biscuit. It's such a good comfort food. It's so good. Making this on like a cold winter's day or a cold fall day, and it's all rainy and wet, it's just so good. So, thank you for watching Box Free with Stephanie. I hope you liked the show. I hope you tried Grouse Biscuit Bake or chicken or whatever vegetable. I hope you make it and your family thinks it's great. And I will catch you guys on the next show. All right, thanks for watching. Bye.